Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to explain the complete story of the newly released Chinese short drama, Janji Hancur Dewi Menjatuhkanmu. If you enjoy emotional stories filled with love, betrayal, heartbreak, shocking twists, and satisfying revenge, then this drama is definitely for you. In this video, I'll take you through the entire story from beginning to end, explaining every important scene in simple and easy-to-understand English. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into the complete story of Janji Hancur Dewi Menjatuhkanmu. The story begins with a beautiful young woman named Dewi, whose life seems almost perfect from the outside. She is kind, honest, hardworking, and believes that true love is built on trust instead of money or social status. For years, she has dedicated herself to the man she loves more than anyone else, believing that one day they will build a happy family together. Every sacrifice she makes is for the future they dream about together. She supports him through difficult times, stands beside him when everyone else leaves, and never asks for anything in return except loyalty. Dewi truly believes that promises are sacred, and once two people promise to stay together forever, nothing in the world should be able to separate them. Unfortunately, life has different plans. The man she trusts the most slowly begins to change after becoming successful. Money, power, and influence transform him into someone Dewi can barely recognize. Instead of appreciating everything Dewi has done for him, he starts feeling embarrassed by her simple background. He begins spending more time with wealthy people and less time with the woman who sacrificed everything for his success. At first, Dewi ignores the warning signs because she believes every relationship goes through difficult moments. She convinces herself that he is simply busy with work and that everything will return to normal soon. However, deep inside her heart, she feels that something is terribly wrong. One evening, while preparing a special dinner to celebrate their anniversary, Dewi waits for hours, but he never arrives. Her phone calls remain unanswered, and every message she sends is ignored. Instead of giving up, she decides to surprise him by visiting the luxury hotel where he is attending an important business event. She wears the simple dress he once told her looked beautiful on her, hoping to remind him of the days when they were happy together. As she enters the elegant ballroom, her smile slowly disappears. Standing in front of everyone is the man she loves, holding another woman's hand. The rich guests clap happily as he introduces the beautiful stranger as his future wife. Dewi feels as though the ground beneath her feet has disappeared. Every promise he ever made instantly becomes meaningless. She cannot believe the person who once promised to love her forever is now pretending she never existed. Before she has a chance to speak, security guards stop her and treat her like an unwanted guest. Her former lover looks directly into her eyes, but instead of showing guilt, he coldly tells the guards to remove her from the hotel because she is causing trouble. Those cruel words completely shatter Dewi's heart. She walks away in tears while the laughter inside the ballroom continues as if nothing happened. That painful night changes everything. Dewi spends hours crying alone, wondering what she did wrong. She remembers every promise they made, every dream they shared, and every sacrifice she willingly accepted. The next morning, she receives even more devastating news. The small company where she has worked faithfully for years suddenly terminates her employment. Later, she discovers that her ex-lover secretly influenced the decision because he no longer wanted anyone connected to his past. Within 24 hours, Dewi loses both the man she loved and the career she worked so hard to build. Life suddenly feels empty, and for the first time, she questions whether kindness has any value in a world ruled by greed and betrayal. Days pass, and Dewi struggles to survive. Bills continue piling up while her savings disappear. Friends who once enjoyed her company suddenly become distant after hearing rumors spread by her former fiancé. Many people begin believing that Dewi was the one who betrayed him, while he successfully presents himself as the innocent victim. The lies destroy her reputation, leaving her completely isolated. Despite all the pain, Dewi refuses to hate the world. She quietly searches for a new job, hoping to rebuild her life one small step at a time. During one interview, however, another unexpected humiliation awaits her. The interviewer recognizes her name and mocks her because of the scandal surrounding her failed relationship. Instead of judging her qualifications, They laugh at the gossip they heard online. Dewey leaves the building with tears filling her eyes, realizing that betrayal has consequences far beyond heartbreak. Meanwhile, the wealthy woman engaged to Dewey's former lover is introduced as someone from an influential business family. She appears elegant and confident, but behind her charming smile hides a manipulative personality. She knows everything about Dewey and intentionally enjoys watching her suffer. Rather than feeling sympathy, she considers Dewey a weak woman who deserves to lose everything. Together, the couple begins destroying the last pieces of Dewey's peaceful life, believing she will never recover from such overwhelming pain. But fate has not finished writing Dewey's story. One rainy evening, after another unsuccessful job interview, Dewey notices an elderly woman collapsing near the roadside. Without thinking about her own problems, she rushes to help. She calls an ambulance, stays beside the woman until medical assistance arrives, and even pays part of the hospital expenses using the little money she has left. Dewey never asks who the woman is because helping others comes naturally to her. She quietly leaves before anyone can thank her. Unknown to Dewey, the elderly woman belongs to one of the most respected and powerful families in the city. Her unexpected act of kindness will soon change the direction of her life forever. While Dewey believes she has reached the lowest point of her existence, destiny is silently preparing an opportunity that will completely transform her future. The people who betrayed her celebrate what they think is their greatest victory, never imagining that the woman they destroyed is about to become stronger than they ever believed possible. This marks the true beginning of Dewey's incredible journey from a broken-hearted victim to a fearless woman determined to reclaim her dignity, expose every lie, and make those who betrayed her face the consequences of their own actions. The following morning, Dewey wakes up in her small apartment feeling emotionally exhausted, but deep inside, she realizes that crying will not change what has happened. She quietly wipes away her tears, looks at herself in the mirror, and promises that no matter how painful her life becomes, she will never lose the kindness that defines her. At that very moment, she has no idea that her decision to help the elderly woman the previous night has already begun creating unexpected changes behind the scenes. Meanwhile, at one of the city's most luxurious private hospitals, the elderly woman regains consciousness. Her children and grandchildren surround her bed with relief after doctors confirm that she is now safe. When they ask what happened, she explains that a young woman she has never met risked everything to save her life without expecting any reward. The family is deeply moved because they know very well that many people would have ignored an old woman lying on the roadside. The elderly woman asks her assistants to find the mysterious girl who helped her, determined to personally thank her for such genuine kindness. At the same time, Dewey continues searching for work, unaware that powerful people are now looking for her. She spends the entire day walking from one company to another, only to face rejection after rejection. Some employers politely refuse her application, while others secretly receive phone calls warning them not to hire her. Her former fiancé has become so obsessed with protecting his reputation that he quietly uses his business connections to ensure Dewey never gets another opportunity. Every closed door makes her journey even harder, yet she refuses to give up. She tells herself that if she can survive this difficult chapter, one day she will become stronger than ever before. Across the city, her ex-lover enjoys his luxurious lifestyle. Expensive parties, business meetings, and media interviews have completely replaced the simple life he once shared with Dewey. Whenever reporters ask about his successful engagement, he proudly smiles beside his wealthy fiancée while pretending that his past relationship never existed. The couple believes Dewey has completely disappeared from their lives forever. However, beneath his confident appearance, he occasionally remembers the woman who stood beside him during his darkest days. Instead of admitting his guilt, he buries those memories and convinces himself that abandoning Dewey was necessary for his success. His fiancée notices these moments of hesitation and becomes increasingly possessive, constantly reminding him that powerful people cannot afford emotional weakness. She wants complete control over both his heart and his business empire, and she will do whatever it takes to secure her position. A few days later, Dewey receives a phone call from the hospital asking her to return because someone wishes to meet her. Thinking there must be a mistake, she reluctantly visits the hospital. As she enters the private VIP room, she is shocked to discover the elderly woman smiling warmly at her. The woman introduces herself as Madame Ratna, the respected matriarch of one of the country's wealthiest business families. Instead of treating Dewey like a stranger, Madame Ratna thanks her with sincere gratitude and explains that no amount of money can repay someone who saves another person's life. Dewey politely insists that anyone in her position would have done the same thing, refusing to accept expensive gifts or financial rewards. Her humble response surprises the entire family because they are accustomed to people seeking favors from them. Madame Ratna immediately realizes that Dewey possesses something far more valuable than wealth, an honest heart. Impressed by her character, Madame Ratna invites Dewey to work as her personal assistant until she finds a better opportunity. Although hesitant at first, Dewey finally accepts because she desperately needs a job to survive. She never imagines that accepting this simple offer will place her inside the very world controlled by the people who betrayed her. On her first day, Dewey is introduced to the family's enormous corporate headquarters. The building is far grander than anything she has ever seen before. Every employee respectfully greets Madame Ratna, making it clear that her influence reaches every corner of the company. Dewey carefully observes everything while trying to perform her duties professionally. She remains quiet, respectful, and hardworking, quickly earning the admiration of many employees. Even the senior managers notice her intelligence and calm personality during difficult situations. Madame Ratna becomes increasingly convinced that Dewey has exceptional potential far beyond an ordinary assistant. While Dewey slowly rebuilds her confidence, fate creates another unexpected coincidence. One afternoon, a major business meeting is scheduled between Madame Ratna's company and several powerful investors. Among the invited guests are Dewey's former fiancé and his wealthy fiancée. Neither side realizes they are about to meet again under completely different circumstances. As Dewey organizes important documents outside the conference room, she suddenly hears a familiar voice. Her heart begins beating rapidly as memories of betrayal flood back into her mind. She turns around and sees the man who destroyed her life walking confidently toward the meeting room, completely unaware that Dewey now works for one of the most influential families in the country. For a brief moment, both of them freeze in shock. His confident smile instantly disappears, replaced by disbelief. He never expected to see Dewey standing inside such a prestigious company. Meanwhile, his fiancée narrows her eyes with suspicion, unable to understand how the woman they humiliated has suddenly appeared in a place reserved only for society's elite. Neither of them realizes that destiny has finally begun placing the pieces of a much larger game into motion, and this unexpected reunion marks only the beginning of the battles that will completely change all of their lives. For several long seconds, complete silence fills the hallway outside the conference room. Dewey and the man who once promised to love her forever stand face to face again after everything that happened between them. The expression on his face changes from confidence to pure disbelief as he stares at her elegant professional outfit and the employee identification card hanging around her neck. In his mind, Dewey was supposed to disappear from society after he ruined her reputation. He expected her to remain unemployed, heartbroken, and forgotten forever. Instead, she is standing inside one of the most respected companies in the country. Dewey feels her heart beating faster as painful memories flash through her mind. The anniversary dinner she prepared, the luxury hotel where she watched him announce his engagement to another woman, the humiliation of being dragged out by security guards, and the countless nights she cried alone wondering why the man she loved had betrayed her so cruelly. But unlike before, she refuses to let those memories control her emotions. She takes a slow breath, lowers her eyes for a brief moment, and then calmly greets him as if he were nothing more than another business visitor. Her quiet confidence surprises him far more than anger ever could. Before he has the chance to speak, his wealthy fiancée steps forward with a cold smile. She looks Dewey up and down with obvious disrespect before sarcastically asking whether she has finally managed to find work after losing everything. Her voice is loud enough for nearby employees to hear, clearly intended to embarrass Dewey once again. In the past, Dewey would have remained silent while holding back tears, but today she simply smiles politely and answers that every honest job deserves respect. Her calm response leaves the fiancé speechless because she expected an emotional reaction instead of quiet dignity. At that exact moment, Madame Ratna walks into the hallway. Every employee immediately stands straighter as she approaches. Without hesitation, Madame Ratna warmly asks Dewey to accompany her into the conference room because she personally needs her assistance during the meeting. The former couple watches in complete shock as one of the country's most influential business leaders treats Dewey with kindness and trust. They suddenly realize that the woman they believed had been completely destroyed now enjoys the confidence of someone whose influence is greater than their own. Inside the meeting room, Dewey quietly distributes documents while remaining completely professional. Although her former fiancé struggles to focus on the discussion, Dewey never once looks in his direction. This simple act unsettles him even more because he expected hatred, accusations, or tears. Instead, she behaves as though their painful past no longer has any control over her life. Throughout the meeting, Madame Ratna occasionally asks Dewey for financial reports and project files. Dewey answers every question clearly and confidently, demonstrating intelligence that impresses several senior executives. Some even whisper among themselves that Madame Ratna has discovered an exceptionally talented assistant. Meanwhile, the former fiancé begins questioning whether he ever truly understood the woman he abandoned. For years, he had underestimated her abilities because he only focused on wealth and social status. Now he watches respected business leaders value her opinions, and for the first time, a small feeling of regret begins growing inside him. After the meeting ends, Madame Ratna publicly thanks Dewey for her excellent preparation and announces that she will soon begin training her for greater responsibilities within the company. The announcement immediately attracts attention because very few employees receive such trust so quickly. Dewey herself feels surprised and slightly overwhelmed, but she gratefully accepts the opportunity, promising to work even harder. As everyone leaves the conference room, the former fiancé quietly follows Dewey into another corridor, hoping to speak with her privately. When they are finally alone, he awkwardly apologizes for how things ended between them. He claims that business pressure forced him to make difficult decisions and insists that everything happened for reasons beyond his control. Dewey listens without interrupting, but the pain hidden behind his carefully chosen words is obvious to her. She calmly reminds him that no amount of success ever justifies betraying someone who loved him unconditionally. She tells him that losing money is painful, but losing trust is something that can never truly be repaired. Her words strike him deeply because he knows she is telling the truth. Before he can continue explaining himself, his fiancée suddenly appears. Having secretly followed him, she becomes furious after seeing the two of them talking alone. She immediately accuses Dewey of trying to steal another woman's fiancé and loudly insults her character. Several employees stop walking and begin watching the argument. Instead of defending herself emotionally, Dewey simply states that she has no interest in anyone who abandoned loyalty for personal gain. She then quietly walks away, leaving both of them standing there in uncomfortable silence. The incident quickly spreads throughout the company, and many employees begin admiring Dewey's maturity under pressure. Madame Ratna also learns about what happened. Rather than questioning Dewey, she gently asks whether those people from the meeting caused her any discomfort. For the first time, Dewey honestly shares the painful story of her broken engagement and the betrayal that nearly destroyed her life. She does not exaggerate or seek sympathy. She simply tells the truth. Madame Ratna listens carefully before placing a comforting hand on Dewey's shoulder. She explains that life has a strange way of rewarding people who remain honest even after experiencing unimaginable pain. She advises Dewey not to waste her future seeking revenge driven by anger, but instead to become so successful that the people who underestimated her naturally regret their choices. Those words remain in Dewey's heart long after the conversation ends. That evening, as she returns home, she realizes something important. For the first time since her world collapsed, she no longer feels like a helpless victim. She still carries emotional scars, but each new day is slowly replacing weakness with confidence. Unknown to her, however, the jealous fiancé has already decided that Dewey's growing success is becoming a serious threat. Determined to eliminate her once and for all, she secretly begins planning a dangerous scheme that will not only destroy Dewey's career, but could also place her life in unexpected danger, setting the stage for an even greater conflict in the chapters ahead. The next few days pass quietly on the surface, but beneath that calm atmosphere, invisible tensions begin growing inside the company. Dewey throws herself completely into her new responsibilities, determined to prove that Madame Ratna's trust was not misplaced. She arrives at the office before everyone else every morning and often becomes the last person to leave at night. Instead of complaining about the long hours, she studies financial reports, business contracts, and management strategies, eager to learn everything she can. The senior employees are surprised by how quickly she adapts. Even tasks that normally take new assistants weeks to understand are completed by Dewey with remarkable accuracy. Madame Ratna notices this dedication and begins inviting her to more important meetings, allowing her to observe how major business decisions are made. While Dewey gains confidence every day, news of her rapid rise spreads throughout the city's business community. Eventually, that information reaches the ears of the one person who fears it the most, her former fiancé's wealthy fiancé. She cannot accept the fact that the woman she once humiliated is slowly earning respect from people far more powerful than herself. Her jealousy grows stronger with every report she receives. She convinces herself that Dewey must be secretly manipulating Madame Ratna to gain influence, refusing to believe that genuine kindness and hard work could earn someone's trust so quickly. Driven by pride and insecurity, she decides that Dewey must be removed before she becomes impossible to stop. Instead of confronting her directly again, she chooses a far more dangerous approach. She secretly contacts one of the company's corrupt middle managers, a man drowning in personal debt who is desperate for money. Offering him a large payment, she orders him to create a situation that will destroy Dewey's reputation from within the company. The manager hesitates at first because he knows Madame Ratna values honesty above everything else, but greed eventually overcomes his conscience. Together, they prepare a plan involving confidential company documents and missing financial records, hoping to frame Dewey for corporate misconduct. Completely unaware of the conspiracy forming around her, Dewey continues focusing on her work. One afternoon, Madame Ratna asks her to organize several confidential project files for an upcoming investment meeting. Dewey carefully completes the assignment and locks every document inside the company's secure archive room before leaving for lunch. While she is away, the corrupt manager quietly enters the archive using his authorized access card. He removes several important contracts and transfers a large amount of confidential information onto a hidden storage device. Before leaving, he deliberately places Dewey's fingerprints on one of the missing file folders, making it appear as though she had secretly stolen the documents herself. By the time Dewey returns, everything appears perfectly normal. She has no reason to suspect that someone has carefully prepared a trap around her. The following morning, chaos erupts throughout the headquarters. Security officers suddenly begin searching every department after discovering that highly confidential business documents have disappeared overnight. Senior executives panic because the missing information contains details about an upcoming billion-dollar partnership. Madame Ratna immediately orders an internal investigation, insisting that every employee cooperate fully. Dewey remains calm because she knows she has done nothing wrong. However, her confidence begins to fade when security officers unexpectedly ask to inspect her office desk. Hidden inside one of the drawers, they discover a flash drive containing copies of the stolen documents. Dewey stares at it in complete disbelief because she has never seen the device before in her life. The room falls silent as suspicious eyes turn toward her. Some employees who admired her only yesterday now begin whispering among themselves. The corrupt manager pretends to be shocked while secretly enjoying every second of the unfolding drama. He calmly suggests that perhaps Dewey's sudden promotion made her greedy enough to steal valuable company secrets. His carefully chosen words create even more suspicion among those present. For a brief moment, it seems as though everything Dewey has worked so hard to rebuild is about to collapse once again. But Madame Ratna refuses to make a quick judgment. She has spent enough time with Dewey to recognize her character. Instead of accusing her immediately, she quietly asks everyone to leave the room except Dewey. Once they are alone, Madame Ratna gently asks whether there is anything Dewey wishes to explain. Fighting back tears, Dewey honestly answers that she has absolutely no idea how the flash drive appeared inside her desk. She admits that the evidence looks terrible but insists she would never betray the trust that had been given to her. Looking directly into Dewey's eyes, Madame Ratna senses the sincerity in her voice. Rather than seeing fear born from guilt, she sees the same honesty that first convinced her this young woman was different from everyone else. Instead of suspending Dewey like the other executives recommend, Madame Ratna quietly tells her that truth always leaves traces behind, even when lies appear convincing at first. She promises that the investigation will continue until the real culprit is found. Meanwhile, outside the office, the corrupt manager secretly contacts the jealous fiancé to inform her that the first stage of their plan has succeeded perfectly. They celebrate together, convinced that Dewey's reputation will soon be destroyed forever. Her former fiancé overhears part of their conversation and becomes suspicious. Although he still does not know the full truth, he senses that something is terribly wrong. For the first time since betraying Dewey, his conscience begins pushing him to question whether the woman standing beside him is truly the person he thought she was. As night falls over the city, Dewey sits alone in her apartment, overwhelmed by frustration yet refusing to surrender. She remembers Madame Ratna's words about honesty eventually defeating deception. Clenching her fists, she silently promises herself that no matter how carefully this trap has been designed, she will uncover the truth, expose everyone responsible, and ensure that those who tried to destroy her life once again will finally face the consequences of their own cruelty. The following morning, the atmosphere inside the company is noticeably different. Employees who once greeted Dewey with warm smiles now exchange nervous glances whenever she walks through the office. Although no official conclusion has been reached regarding the missing documents, rumors spread much faster than facts. Some workers whisper that Dewey's sudden promotion had been too good to be true, while others refuse to believe she could betray Madame Ratna after everything the older woman had done for her. Dewey hears fragments of these conversations as she quietly makes her way to her office, but instead of reacting emotionally, she reminds herself that truth does not need to shout to be heard. She knows that if she allows anger or frustration to control her actions, she will only make herself appear guilty. Determined to protect both her dignity and Madame Ratna's trust, she decides to uncover the real culprit herself. Later that morning, Madame Ratna calls Dewey into her office. Unlike the other executives, she speaks calmly and with genuine concern. She explains that the board of directors is demanding immediate action because the leaked documents could affect several important business partnerships. Some directors even insist that Dewey should be suspended until the investigation is complete. However, Madame Ratna refuses to make such a decision without undeniable evidence. She tells Dewey that while she believes in her innocence, belief alone is not enough in the business world. They need proof. Those words strengthen Dewey's determination. She thanks Madame Ratna for trusting her and promises that she will personally help expose whoever is truly responsible. Madame Ratna smiles gently before giving Dewey temporary access to the company's internal security records, something she rarely allows even senior managers to review. It is a sign that her trust in Dewey has become even stronger despite the accusations surrounding her. Meanwhile, across town, Dewey's former fiancé begins feeling increasingly uncomfortable. Ever since overhearing part of the secret conversation between his fiancée and the corrupt manager, he has sensed that something is being hidden from him. At first, he dismisses his suspicions, convincing himself that he is imagining things. But as he watches his fiancée celebrate Dewey's troubles with unusual excitement, he starts remembering the honest, compassionate woman Dewey had always been. The guilt he buried for months begins resurfacing. He recalls how she stood beside him when he had nothing, how she encouraged him during his failures, and how she never once asked for recognition in return. For the first time, he realizes that perhaps he did not simply leave Dewey behind. Perhaps he betrayed the only person who truly loved him. His growing doubts create tension between him and his fiancée, who notices his unusual silence. Determined to keep him under control, she reassures him that people like Dewey are always pretending to be innocent while secretly chasing power. Although he nods, her words no longer convince him as easily as before. Back at the company, Dewey begins carefully reviewing security footage from the night the documents disappeared. Hour after hour, she studies recordings from every hallway, elevator, and archive room. At first, everything appears normal, but eventually she notices something unusual. For a brief moment, one of the security cameras outside the archive room goes completely black before suddenly coming back online. The interruption lasts less than 2 minutes, but it is enough to raise suspicion. Dewey immediately requests maintenance reports for the camera system. To her surprise, the technical department confirms that no equipment failure was reported that evening. This means someone intentionally disabled the camera. Encouraged by this discovery, Dewey digs even deeper. She checks electronic access records for the archive room and discovers that her own employee card was never used after she left for lunch. However, another authorized card entered the room only minutes later. The identification number belongs to the same middle manager who has been quietly accusing her ever since the investigation began. Dewey's heart races as the pieces slowly begin fitting together. Still, she understands that access records alone are not enough to expose him publicly. She needs undeniable proof. Before sharing her findings with anyone else, she secretly copies the security logs onto a protected drive. Unfortunately, someone has been watching her every move. The corrupt manager notices Dewey spending hours inside the security office and immediately realizes that she may be getting close to the truth. Panic replaces his earlier confidence. He contacts the jealous fiancée and explains that Dewey has started investigating on her own. Furious, the fiancé orders him to finish the job before Dewey uncovers their conspiracy. That very evening, while Dewey is driving home after another exhausting day, a black luxury SUV begins following her through the quiet streets. At first, she assumes it is only another commuter, but after making several turns, she realizes the vehicle remains behind her. Her heartbeat quickens as the SUV suddenly accelerates. Without warning, it attempts to force her small car off the road. Dewey struggles to maintain control, narrowly avoiding a serious collision. Just as she believes she is about to crash, another vehicle unexpectedly appears from the opposite direction, causing the SUV to pull away and disappear into the darkness before its license plate can be identified. Shaken but unharmed, Dewey parks her car on the roadside, trying to understand what has just happened. She cannot prove it, but deep inside she knows this was no ordinary traffic incident. Someone wanted to silence her before she discovered the truth. Unknown to Dewey, the mysterious driver who unintentionally saved her life witnessed everything and quietly recorded the fleeing SUV with a dashboard camera. Neither Dewey nor the conspirators realize that this unexpected witness has captured the first piece of evidence capable of exposing the dangerous plot that is growing larger with every passing day, bringing everyone one step closer to a confrontation that will change all of their lives forever. The following morning, Dewey wakes up with the terrifying memory of the previous night's incident still fresh in her mind. Every time she closes her eyes, she remembers the black SUV speeding toward her, trying to push her car off the road. Although she escaped without serious injuries, she cannot shake the feeling that someone is desperately trying to stop her investigation. As she prepares for work, she carefully examines her damaged car and notices fresh scratches along one side, clear evidence that the collision was intentional. She considers reporting the incident to the police, but without a license plate number or a clear description of the driver, she fears the case will go nowhere. Instead, she decides to focus on exposing the people responsible inside the company first. She believes that once the conspiracy is uncovered, everything else will begin making sense. When she arrives at the office, she notices several employees staring at her with curiosity. News of the attempted accident has not reached anyone, but the investigation into the missing documents continues to dominate every conversation. Dewey ignores the whispers and heads directly to Madame Ratna's office. The older woman immediately notices the exhaustion on Dewey's face and asks if something has happened. After a moment of hesitation, Dewey tells her about the mysterious SUV and her suspicion that someone is trying to intimidate her. Madame Ratna's expression instantly turns serious. She has spent decades in the business world and knows that people who fear the truth often resort to desperate measures. Without wasting a second, she orders the company's private security team to increase protection around Dewey. She also quietly contacts an old friend who previously served as a senior police investigator, asking him to discreetly look into the incident. Dewey is deeply touched by Madame Ratna's concern. It reminds her of something she has not felt in a long time: the comforting presence of someone who genuinely cares about her safety rather than using her for personal gain. Meanwhile, the corrupt manager becomes increasingly nervous after learning that Dewey survived the accident. He had expected the intimidation to frighten her into abandoning the investigation, but instead she appears more determined than ever. His anxiety grows even worse when he receives a message from the jealous fiancée demanding immediate results. She reminds him that if he fails, both of them could lose everything. The manager begins making careless mistakes, constantly looking over his shoulder and worrying that someone is watching him. Unknown to him, another problem is quietly approaching. The mysterious driver whose vehicle interrupted the attempted attack has already reviewed the footage from his dashboard camera. While watching the recording, he notices that although the SUV's front license plate is difficult to read, the rear plate becomes visible for a few seconds as it speeds away. Realizing that the footage may be important, he contacts the police and submits a copy of the video. At the same time, Madame Ratna's retired investigator friend also begins examining the case. By combining traffic camera recordings with the dashboard footage, he quickly identifies the SUV's registered owner. Surprisingly, the vehicle belongs not to a criminal organization, but to a transportation company frequently hired by one of the businesses connected to Dewey's former fiancée's wealthy fiancé. Although this information alone does not prove her involvement, it raises serious questions about how deeply she may be connected to the growing conspiracy. Back at the office, Dewey continues examining electronic access records and financial transactions. While comparing payment histories, she discovers something unusual. The corrupt manager recently received a large amount of money from an account belonging to a consulting company. At first glance, the payment appears legitimate, but after looking closer, she realizes the consulting company has no actual employees, no office, and almost no business activity. It exists only on paper. The transfer took place just 2 days before the confidential documents disappeared. Dewey immediately senses that this money may have been a bribe. Instead of confronting the manager directly, she quietly saves copies of every financial record she can find. She knows that exposing corruption requires patience. One careless move could allow the real criminals to destroy the evidence before she presents it. That afternoon, another important board meeting is scheduled. During the meeting, several directors once again pressure Madame Ratna to suspend Dewey. They argue that allowing a suspect to continue working creates unnecessary risk for the company. Before Madame Ratna can respond, Dewey politely stands up and asks for permission to speak. The room falls silent. Calmly and confidently, she explains that she understands everyone's concerns and that she is willing to accept any decision made by the board. However, she also asks for 3 more days to complete her own investigation. She promises that within that time she will either prove her innocence or accept full responsibility if she fails. Her sincerity impresses many people in the room. Even directors who previously doubted her begin reconsidering their opinions. Madame Ratna accepts Dewey's request and officially grants her 3 days. The corrupt manager feels cold sweat running down his back because he knows that every additional day gives Dewey another opportunity to uncover the truth. After the meeting ends, Dewey unexpectedly crosses paths with her former fiancé in the company parking area. Unlike their previous encounters, he no longer speaks with arrogance. Instead, he quietly asks whether she is truly all right after hearing rumors about a traffic accident. Dewey is surprised that he seems genuinely concerned, but she keeps her distance. She thanks him for asking and calmly replies that she has learned to survive far worse than one frightening night on the road. Her words leave him speechless. Watching her walk away with quiet confidence, he finally understands the painful truth. The woman standing before him is no longer the heartbroken girl he abandoned months ago. She has become stronger, wiser, and impossible to control. As the sun sets over the city, Dewey returns home carrying a folder filled with evidence that is slowly exposing the conspiracy against her. She has no idea that the missing piece of the puzzle, the dashboard camera recording capable of linking the attempted attack to powerful people, is already making its way toward Madame Ratna's investigator. The truth is now closer than ever, and the carefully constructed web of lies that trap Dewey is beginning to unravel, threatening to destroy everyone who believed they could bury the truth forever. The next morning marks the beginning of the 3 days Dewey has been given to prove her innocence, and she knows every minute matters. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the pressure, she wakes up with a determination stronger than ever before. For months, life has tested her patience, her courage, and her faith in people, but every painful experience has taught her one important lesson. Truth may be delayed, but it can never remain hidden forever. As she arrives at the company headquarters, she notices that the atmosphere is unusually tense. Employees stop talking whenever she walks past them, while several executives secretly observe her from a distance. Everyone is waiting to see whether the young woman accused of stealing confidential company documents will clear her name or become another example of someone who fell from success overnight. Dewey ignores every suspicious glance and heads directly to the security department, where she continues examining every digital record connected to the night of the theft. She carefully compares electronic access logs, maintenance reports, employee schedules, and surveillance backups. Hours pass without any major breakthrough, but just as she begins organizing the files, one small detail catches her attention. The corrupt manager's access card entered the archive room exactly 2 minutes after the security cameras mysteriously went offline, yet according to his official attendance record, he was supposed to be attending an executive dinner at another hotel across town during that same time. The contradiction immediately raises a serious question. If he was truly at the dinner, how could his access card be used inside the company? Dewey quickly requests a copy of the attendance photographs taken during the dinner event. As she carefully studies every image, another shocking discovery appears. The corrupt manager is missing from every group photograph taken during the exact period when the documents disappeared. Although he signed the attendance register, there is no visual proof that he actually remained at the event. Someone deliberately created a false alibi. Meanwhile, Madame Ratna's retired investigator continues examining the attempted road attack against Dewey. Using the dashboard camera footage provided by the anonymous witness, he successfully traces the SUV's movements through several city traffic cameras. The investigation reveals that the vehicle was rented using fake identification, but the payment was made through a company account secretly connected to one of the wealthy fiancé's business subsidiaries. While the evidence is still circumstantial, it creates an undeniable pattern linking both the document theft and the attempted attack to the same group of people. The investigator immediately informs Madame Ratna, warning her that Dewey is facing enemies willing to commit serious crimes to protect their secrets. Realizing the danger has become much greater than she originally imagined, Madame Ratna quietly assigns 2 trusted security officers to watch over Dewey without informing her, hoping to keep her safe while avoiding unnecessary panic. At the same time, Dewey's former fiancé finds himself trapped in a growing emotional conflict. Every new accusation against Dewey makes less sense to him. The woman he once knew could never betray someone who trusted her. Unable to ignore his conscience any longer, he secretly visits one of his old employees who previously worked under the corrupt manager. After a careful conversation, he learns something deeply disturbing. Several weeks before the document theft, the manager had been meeting privately with his fiancée on multiple occasions, always insisting that nobody should know about those meetings. The former fiancé suddenly realizes that the woman he plans to marry may have been manipulating events behind his back. His confidence begins collapsing as painful guilt fills his heart. He remembers the countless times Dewey stood beside him during difficult years, never asking for anything except honesty. In contrast, the woman he chose instead seems willing to destroy innocent lives simply to satisfy her own pride. Back inside the company, Dewey receives another unexpected breakthrough. While reviewing archived computer activity, the IT department discovers that someone attempted to delete security records shortly after the investigation began. Fortunately, the company's backup system automatically saved the deleted files before they disappeared permanently. The recovered data clearly shows that the corrupt manager logged into the security network using an administrator password that he was never authorized to possess. Even more surprising, the administrator account had been accessed remotely from a laptop registered to the consulting company that paid him a suspicious amount of money. Every new piece of evidence strengthens Dewey's case. However, she knows she still needs one final link proving who ordered the conspiracy. Without that connection, the manager could simply claim he acted alone. Late that evening, as the corrupt manager nervously leaves the office, he receives an urgent phone call from the jealous fiancée. She orders him to destroy every remaining document connecting them before the investigation reaches its conclusion. Unaware that he is being followed by Madame Ratna's security team, the manager drives to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city where he has hidden several boxes of financial records. As he unlocks the storage room, the security officers quietly photograph everything from a distance before informing the retired investigator. Minutes later, police officers arrive with a legal search warrant. The corrupt manager panics and attempts to escape through a rear exit, but officers quickly arrest him before he can flee. Inside the warehouse, investigators recover missing company documents, fake financial contracts, payment records, and encrypted messages exchanged between the manager and an anonymous business representative. Although the representative's identity remains hidden behind coded accounts, one thing becomes absolutely clear. The theft inside Madame Ratna's company was never the work of a single dishonest employee. It was part of a carefully organized conspiracy involving powerful people with enormous financial resources. As news of the arrest reaches the company the following morning, everyone realizes that Dewey may have been telling the truth from the very beginning. But while the first conspirator has finally fallen, the most dangerous mastermind remains free, quietly watching every development and preparing one final desperate move to protect everything she has built, even if it means risking lives to keep her darkest secrets buried forever. The arrest of the corrupt manager sends shockwaves through the entire company. By the time Dewey arrives at the office the next morning, television reporters are already standing outside the headquarters, hoping to gather information about the growing corporate scandal. Employees who had once whispered behind Dewey's back now look at her with completely different expressions. Some feel ashamed for doubting her, while others quietly admire the strength she showed during the most difficult period of her life. Dewey, however, refuses to celebrate too early. Although one important piece of the conspiracy has been uncovered, she knows the real mastermind is still free. The corrupt manager was only a pawn. Someone with far greater influence had been pulling the strings from the shadows. Inside the executive conference room, Madame Ratna gathers the board of directors for an emergency meeting. The retired investigator presents the evidence recovered from the abandoned warehouse, including the missing company documents, fake consulting contracts, suspicious bank transfers, and deleted security records that were successfully restored. The board members are stunned by the scale of the conspiracy. Several directors who previously demanded Dewey's suspension now publicly apologize for doubting her honesty. One by one, they admit that they judged her based only on appearances instead of facts. Madame Ratna then stands up and announces that Dewey's name has been officially cleared. She is not only innocent, but has also played the most important role in exposing corruption inside the company. The room fills with applause, but Dewey remains humble. Instead of expressing anger toward those who accused her, she simply thanks everyone for allowing the truth to speak for itself. Her maturity earns even greater respect from everyone present. Meanwhile, the corrupt manager is taken into police custody. During the first several hours of questioning, he refuses to cooperate. He repeatedly claims that he acted alone and insists no one else was involved. However, experienced investigators quickly notice the fear in his behavior. It is obvious that he is protecting someone. Later that afternoon, the retired investigator visits him privately and places several photographs on the table. One picture shows the manager secretly meeting the wealthy fiancée at an expensive restaurant. Another shows money being transferred from a shell company into his personal account. Finally, the investigator plays part of a recorded phone conversation recovered from the manager's hidden phone. Hearing his own voice discussing confidential company documents leaves him speechless. Sweat begins forming on his forehead as he realizes the evidence against him is overwhelming. The investigator calmly explains that continuing to protect the real mastermind will only make his own punishment much worse. For the first time, the manager's confidence completely disappears. At the same time, Dewey's former fiancée finds himself struggling with unbearable guilt. The woman he once trusted is now at the center of a criminal investigation, while the woman he abandoned has been proven innocent. Every new revelation reminds him of the terrible mistake he made. He remembers how easily he believed false rumors about Dewey and how quickly he sacrificed the woman who had always stood beside him. Unable to carry the weight of his guilt any longer, he asks Dewey to meet him after work. At first, she hesitates, but eventually agrees because she believes running away from the past will solve nothing. They meet in a quiet park where they once dreamed about their future together. The place that once held beautiful memories now feels strangely empty. Standing beneath the old trees, he sincerely apologizes for everything he did. His voice trembles as he admits that ambition blinded him and that he allowed wealth and status to destroy the most valuable relationship of his life. He confesses that he no longer recognizes the person he has become. Dewey listens quietly without interrupting. After a long silence, she gently tells him that forgiveness and trust are two very different things. She has already chosen not to hate him because hatred would only keep her trapped in the past. But the trust he broke can never be restored. Some wounds heal, but the scars remain forever. Her calm words carry more weight than any angry accusation ever could. Tears fill his eyes as he realizes he has permanently lost the woman who once loved him without conditions. As Dewey walks away, she does not feel satisfaction or revenge. Instead, she feels something far more valuable: freedom. For the first time since her heartbreak, she understands that her happiness no longer depends on someone else's choices. While Dewey finally closes one painful chapter of her life, the wealthy fiancé grows increasingly desperate. News of the corrupt manager's arrest reaches her mansion, and panic immediately replaces her usual confidence. She begins destroying documents, deleting phone records, and ordering her personal assistants to cancel several suspicious business accounts. She even contacts an overseas lawyer, preparing an escape plan in case the investigation reaches her. However, she does not realize that the police have already obtained permission to monitor several financial transactions connected to her companies. Every attempt to erase evidence only creates new trails leading directly back to her. Late that evening, the corrupt manager finally breaks under pressure during another interrogation. Knowing that he can no longer hide the truth, he signs an official confession describing how the wealthy fiancé approached him months earlier with an offer of money in exchange for destroying Dewey's reputation and stealing confidential company documents. He also admits that after Dewey began uncovering the conspiracy, the same woman ordered people to frighten her by staging the road attack. His confession changes the entire investigation. What began as a simple corporate theft has now become a criminal case involving fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, and obstruction of justice. As the signed confession is delivered to Madame Ratna, and the police prepare arrest warrants for everyone involved, the wealthy fiancée sits alone inside her luxurious mansion, unaware that the walls she carefully built around her empire are finally beginning to collapse, and by the time the sun rises again, there will be nowhere left for her to hide. As the first rays of sunlight spread across the city, a carefully planned police operation quietly begins. Investigators who have spent weeks collecting evidence are finally ready to move against the people responsible for the conspiracy. Search warrants are signed before dawn, and several investigation teams leave simultaneously for different locations connected to the wealthy fiancé's business empire. Inside her luxurious mansion, she is still trying to erase every trace of her involvement. Important documents are being burned in the fireplace, laptops are being reset, and confidential files are being loaded into expensive suitcases. She believes she still has enough time to leave the country before the authorities reach her. However, she has seriously underestimated how much evidence the corrupt manager's confession has provided. Every location she planned to use as a hiding place has already been identified by investigators. Before she can leave the mansion, the sound of several police vehicles fills the quiet morning air. Moments later, officers surround the property from every direction. Her security guards freeze as the lead investigator presents an official arrest warrant charging her with corporate fraud, conspiracy, evidence tampering, attempted murder, and organizing the theft of confidential business documents. For the first time in years, the confident woman who always believed money could solve every problem feels genuine fear. She desperately tries to call powerful friends for help, but no one answers. The people who once proudly stood beside her now refuse to become involved in a growing criminal investigation. As officers search the mansion, they recover hidden financial records, encrypted phones, fake consulting contracts, and multiple passports prepared under different identities. Each discovery strengthens the case against her. News channels immediately interrupt their regular programming to report the dramatic arrest of one of the city's most influential businesswomen. Within hours, the scandal dominates every television station, newspaper, and social media platform. The same public that once admired her success now watches as investigators carry box after box of evidence out of her mansion. Meanwhile, inside Madame Ratna's company, employees gather around television screens in complete disbelief. Only days earlier, many of them had suspected Dewey of wrongdoing. Now they are witnessing the real criminals being exposed before the entire country. Several workers quietly approach Dewey throughout the day to apologize for doubting her honesty. Dewey accepts every apology with grace, reminding them that difficult situations often reveal a person's true character. She refuses to humiliate anyone who misunderstood her, because she knows how easily fear and rumors can influence people's judgment. Her kindness once again earns the admiration of everyone around her. Madame Ratna publicly announces that Dewey will no longer serve as her personal assistant. Instead, she is being promoted to a senior strategic planning position within the company, becoming one of the youngest executives ever appointed by the organization. The announcement is met with enthusiastic applause throughout the headquarters. Dewey is overwhelmed with emotion because only a few months earlier she had been unemployed, heartbroken, and rejected by nearly every company she visited. Now, through honesty, perseverance, and courage, she has earned the respect of an entire organization. At the same time, Dewey's former fiancé watches the news alone from his office. Every report describing the criminal activities of his fiancé feels like another painful reminder of his own terrible decisions. He realizes that his ambition blinded him so completely that he ignored the genuine love standing right beside him while placing his trust in someone driven only by greed and power. Unable to escape his overwhelming guilt, he officially ends every remaining business relationship connected to the arrested woman. He also voluntarily agrees to cooperate with investigators by providing financial records that may help recover money stolen through fraudulent business transactions. Although his cooperation is appreciated, he understands that nothing can erase the pain he caused Dewey. Some mistakes carry consequences that last far beyond legal punishment. Several days later, the criminal trial begins. The courtroom is filled with journalists, business leaders, and curious citizens eager to witness the downfall of one of the city's wealthiest families. Dewey is called to testify about everything that happened, from the moment she was betrayed by the man she loved to the false accusations, the stolen documents, and the attempt to force her car off the road. She answers every question calmly and honestly, never exaggerating the facts or speaking out of revenge. Her testimony leaves a powerful impression on everyone present because it reflects dignity instead of bitterness. When the wealthy fiancé is finally asked to respond, she initially denies every accusation. However, prosecutors present the corrupt manager's signed confession, financial transfer records, recovered phone messages, surveillance footage, and the dashboard camera recording from the attempted road attack. One piece of evidence after another destroys every excuse she tries to offer. Realizing that there is no longer any path to escape, she lowers her head in silence. The woman who once believed she controlled everyone's future can no longer control her own destiny. After several weeks of hearings, the court delivers its decision. The wealthy fiancé and the corrupt manager are both found guilty on multiple criminal charges. They receive lengthy prison sentences along with heavy financial penalties. Several shell companies involved in the conspiracy are permanently shut down, while stolen assets are seized by the authorities. The verdict sends a powerful message throughout the business community that wealth and influence cannot place anyone above the law. As reporters gather outside the courthouse, many expect Dewey to celebrate the victory. Instead, she quietly says that true justice is not about watching others suffer, but about ensuring that innocent people no longer have to live in fear. Those simple words quickly spread across newspapers and television interviews, inspiring thousands of viewers who had followed the case from the beginning. Walking down the courthouse steps beside Madame Ratna, Dewey takes a deep breath and smiles at the clear blue sky above her. For the first time in many months, she feels completely free. The painful chapter that began with betrayal and heartbreak has finally reached its end, but deep inside, she knows that her greatest journey is only just beginning. The future she once believed had been stolen from her is now waiting with opportunities she never imagined possible, and somewhere ahead, destiny is preparing one final surprise that will change her life forever. Several weeks pass after the court delivers its final verdict, and life slowly begins returning to normal. The endless media attention surrounding the scandal gradually fades. Reporters move on to other headlines, and the city finally stops talking about the dramatic downfall of one of its most powerful business families. For Dewey, however, this new chapter is not about celebrating victory. It is about learning how to live again after surviving the darkest period of her life. Every morning, she walks into Madame Ratna's company with renewed confidence, but she never forgets the difficult journey that brought her there. The office that once felt intimidating has now become a place where people genuinely respect her. Employees who once questioned her integrity now greet her with sincere smiles, often asking for her advice on difficult projects. Rather than acting superior because of her promotion, Dewey treats everyone with the same kindness she showed when she first joined the company. Whether speaking to senior executives or junior staff members, she always listens carefully and encourages teamwork instead of competition. Her humble attitude gradually changes the culture inside the organization. People begin focusing less on office politics and more on helping one another succeed. Madame Ratna watches these changes with quiet satisfaction. She realizes that promoting Dewey was not simply a good business decision. It was the beginning of a positive transformation for the entire company. During one executive meeting, Madame Ratna publicly announces that Dewey will lead a new corporate ethics and employee development program designed to ensure that honesty, transparency, and fairness remain the foundation of every future decision. The board unanimously approves the proposal, recognizing that Dewey's personal experiences make her uniquely qualified to guide others. Although the responsibility feels enormous, Dewey accepts it with gratitude, believing that her painful past can now be used to protect others from experiencing similar injustice. Meanwhile, Dewey's former fiancé quietly struggles to rebuild his own life. After cooperating fully with investigators, he withdraws from many of his previous business partnerships and begins reevaluating everything he once considered important. His luxurious office, expensive cars, and social status no longer bring him satisfaction. Instead, they constantly remind him of the choices that cost him the person who loved him most. One afternoon, he visits the small apartment where he and Dewey once planned their future together. The building has already been rented to another family, and the tiny balcony where they once laughed about their dreams is now occupied by strangers. Standing across the street, he realizes that some moments can never be recovered, no matter how deeply one regrets losing them. That painful realization becomes the greatest lesson of his life. Instead of chasing more wealth, he decides to establish a charitable foundation that provides scholarships and career opportunities for young people from poor backgrounds. Although he knows good deeds cannot erase his mistakes, he hopes they might give some meaning to the future he still has left. Across town, Dewey continues focusing on her own growth. One evening, Madame Ratna invites her to dinner at the family estate. During the meal, the elderly woman shares stories about her own youth, explaining that she also experienced betrayal many decades earlier. She tells Dewey that success is not measured by how many enemies one defeats, but by how many people one helps along the way. Those words touch Dewey deeply because they perfectly reflect the person she wants to become. Before the evening ends, Madame Ratna surprises everyone by officially introducing Dewey to the entire family as someone she considers a daughter rather than merely an employee. The announcement fills Dewey's eyes with tears. After losing the family she once dreamed of building, she never expected to find another place where she would feel accepted and loved without conditions. For the first time in many years, she experiences the warmth of belonging somewhere again. As months continue passing, Dewey's professional reputation spreads far beyond the company. Business magazines begin publishing articles about her inspiring journey from an unemployed woman falsely accused of corporate theft to one of the country's youngest executive leaders. Universities invite her to speak at leadership seminars, where she encourages students never to sacrifice honesty in pursuit of success. During one speech, she tells the audience that betrayal may temporarily break a person's heart, but it should never destroy their character. She explains that true strength is not found in revenge, but in choosing integrity even when life becomes unfair. Her words receive standing ovations wherever she goes because they come not from theory, but from personal experience. At the same time, Madame Ratna quietly prepares another surprise. Having watched Dewi's remarkable growth over the past year, she decides that the young woman deserves an opportunity even greater than anyone expected. She invites Dewi into her private office and reveals plans for an international expansion project that will establish new branches of the company in several neighboring countries. Instead of appointing one of the older executives to lead the project, Madame Ratna offers the position to Dewi. The proposal leaves her completely speechless. Leading an international expansion would be one of the greatest responsibilities in the company's history. Dewi hesitates, questioning whether she is truly experienced enough for such an enormous challenge. Smiling warmly, Madame Ratna reminds her that courage has never been about believing you cannot fail. Courage is choosing to move forward despite uncertainty. Those simple words inspire Dewi to accept the opportunity. As she walks out of the office holding the official appointment letter in her hands, she cannot help remembering the lonely woman who once stood outside a luxury hotel, crying after being betrayed by the man she loved. If someone had told her on that heartbreaking night that she would one day become one of the most respected business leaders in the country, she never would have believed it. Yet here she is, stronger than she ever imagined, ready to begin another extraordinary chapter of her life. Unbeknownst to Dewi, however, the international project she is about to lead will introduce her to new people, unexpected friendships, and perhaps even a chance to experience the kind of genuine love she once believed had disappeared forever, proving that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings only arrive after life's most painful endings. Several months after accepting the responsibility of leading the company's international expansion project, Dewi finds herself standing inside one of the largest conference centers in Southeast Asia. Representatives from different countries, investors, government officials, and international business leaders have gathered for a major economic summit where Madame Ratna's company will officially introduce its expansion plans. Looking around the enormous hall filled with successful entrepreneurs, Dewi cannot help remembering the woman she used to be. Not long ago, she struggled to pay her rent, searched endlessly for a job, and questioned whether her life would ever improve again. Now she is preparing to deliver the opening presentation for one of the most important business projects in the company's history. Although hundreds of people are watching, she feels surprisingly calm. Every hardship she survived has prepared her for this moment. As she confidently walks onto the stage, the audience falls silent. With clear and sincere words, Dewi explains not only the company's vision for international growth, but also the importance of building businesses on honesty, trust, and long-term relationships rather than greed and shortcuts. Her speech receives a standing ovation, and several international investors immediately express interest in partnering with the company. Madame Ratna watches proudly from the front row, her eyes filled with satisfaction. She realizes that the frightened young woman she rescued months ago has transformed into a confident leader capable of inspiring people far beyond her own country. After the presentation ends, many guests approach Dewi to congratulate her. Among them is a businessman named Adrian, the CEO of a respected international technology company. Unlike many wealthy executives, Adrian carries himself with quiet humility. Instead of discussing profits or investments first, he compliments Dewi on the values she emphasized during her speech. He tells her that finding successful leaders who still believe in honesty has become increasingly rare. Their conversation feels natural and effortless. Dewi notices that Adrian listens carefully before speaking, never interrupting or trying to impress anyone with his success. Over the following days, they continue meeting during business discussions and project planning sessions. As they work together, Dewi begins noticing qualities she once believed no longer existed. Adrian respects every employee regardless of position, keeps his promises, and always gives credit to his team instead of seeking personal recognition. These simple actions slowly remind Dewey that not every successful person sacrifices integrity for ambition. Meanwhile, back in their home country, Madame Ratna officially announces the launch of the International Expansion Project. The company's stock value rises significantly, employees celebrate the achievement, and business analysts praise Dewey's leadership in several financial publications. She quickly becomes one of the most admired young executives in the region. However, despite receiving constant praise, Dewey never allows success to change her personality. She continues visiting every department personally, listening to employees' concerns, and encouraging young workers who remind her of herself during the difficult days when she first joined the company. Her kindness creates loyalty that no amount of money could ever buy. At the same time, Dewey's former fiancé quietly follows news about her remarkable achievements. Every newspaper article and television interview fills him with mixed emotions. While he genuinely feels proud of the woman she has become, he also understands that he will forever remain part of the painful chapter she overcame. One afternoon, he unexpectedly meets Madame Ratna during a charity event organized to support students from low-income families. They speak privately for a few minutes, and he sincerely thanks her for believing in Dewey when almost everyone else had abandoned her. Madame Ratna calmly replies that people only reveal their true value when life becomes difficult. She gently reminds him that some opportunities appear only once, and those who fail to appreciate them must learn to live with the consequences. He quietly nods, knowing every word is true. Rather than asking for another chance with Dewey, he chooses to respect the new life she has built without him. Over the following weeks, the international project continues, exceeding expectations. New offices open successfully, partnerships expand into several countries, and the company experiences its strongest financial growth in decades. During one board meeting, investors unanimously vote to appoint Dewey as Executive Director of International Operations, making her one of the youngest people ever to hold such an important position. The announcement is met with enthusiastic applause from everyone in the room. Dewey feels overwhelmed by the trust placed in her, but she also recognizes that leadership is not about titles. It is about responsibility toward the people who believe in you. That evening, as she stands alone on the balcony of her hotel overlooking the brightly lit city skyline, Adrian joins her with 2 cups of coffee. They spend hours talking not about business, but about life, family, dreams, and the painful experiences that shaped them into the people they are today. For the first time in many years, Dewey finds herself smiling without forcing it. There is no fear, no betrayal, and no uncertainty in the conversation, only peace. Adrian never pressures her to open her heart. Instead, he simply listens with patience and understanding. Before leaving, he quietly tells her that some people enter our lives to teach painful lessons, while others arrive to remind us that happiness is still possible. His words stay with Dewey long after he walks away. Standing beneath the stars, she realizes that although her past will always remain part of her story, it no longer controls her future. The woman who once believed her life had ended after a broken promise now understands that every painful ending was quietly guiding her toward a far greater destiny. As she watches the lights of the city stretching endlessly into the distance, Dewey smiles with genuine hope, unaware that the next chapter of her life will not be defined by betrayal or revenge, but by love, purpose, and the beautiful future she finally deserves. Months pass, and the company's international expansion becomes one of the greatest business success stories in the region. Every new office opens ahead of schedule, partnerships continue growing, and the company's reputation reaches countries that had never even heard of Madame Ratna's organization before. Newspapers describe Dewey as a symbol of resilience, while business magazines call her one of the most inspiring young executives of the decade. Despite all the attention, Dewey remains exactly the same person she was when she first walked into the company, as a frightened young woman searching for a second chance. She still greets every employee with a smile, still spends time listening to junior staff members, and still believes that every person deserves respect regardless of their position. Her leadership style slowly changes the entire corporate culture. Employees no longer work out of fear, but out of genuine loyalty, because they know their opinions matter. Productivity increases, teamwork becomes stronger, and even competitors begin studying the company's unique management approach. Madame Ratna often watches these changes with quiet pride, knowing that the greatest investment she ever made was not in buildings or businesses, but in believing in someone whose heart remained pure despite everything life had done to her. One afternoon, after returning from another successful international meeting, Dewey receives an unexpected invitation from Madame Ratna to visit the family estate. Curious about the reason, she arrives at the beautiful mansion where her journey truly began. The elderly woman welcomes her warmly before leading her into the peaceful garden where colorful flowers bloom beneath the afternoon sun. Sitting together beneath an old tree, Madame Ratna smiles gently and tells Dewey that there is something important she has wanted to say for a long time. She explains that when Dewey first saved her life without expecting anything in return, she immediately recognized a rare quality that money could never buy. Throughout her long life, Madame Ratna had met thousands of successful people, but very few possessed genuine kindness. That was why she never saw Dewey as just another employee. She had always hoped that one day Dewey would become the daughter she never had. Hearing those heartfelt words fills Dewey's eyes with tears. She remembers the lonely nights after her betrayal when she believed she had lost everything, never imagining that life would eventually give her a family built not by blood, but by unconditional love and trust. Unable to hold back her emotions, she embraces Madame Ratna, thanking her for believing in her when she could barely believe in herself. At that moment, both women realize that their relationship has become much deeper than business. They have become family in every way that truly matters. Meanwhile, Adrian continues working closely with Dewey on several international projects. Their friendship grows naturally with every passing month. Unlike her previous relationship, there are no empty promises, no hidden motives, and no attempts to control one another. Instead, their connection is built on mutual respect, honest conversations, and shared values. Adrian never rushes Dewey or pressures her to make emotional decisions. He understands that trust takes time to rebuild after betrayal. Instead, he patiently stands beside her, supporting her dreams and celebrating her achievements without expecting anything in return. One evening, after successfully completing another major business agreement, Adrian invites Dewey to walk through a quiet riverside park illuminated by soft evening lights. As they stroll together, they talk about everything they have experienced over the past year. Dewey openly shares the painful memories she once tried so hard to hide. She tells him about the heartbreak, the false accusations, the nights she cried herself to sleep, and the fear she felt when someone tried to force her car off the road. Adrian listens silently, never interrupting. When she finishes speaking, he gently tells her that her past does not define who she is. Instead, it reveals how incredibly strong she has become. He says that anyone can remain kind when life is easy, but only truly remarkable people continue choosing kindness after experiencing betrayal. His words touch Dewey deeply because they come without judgment or pity. For the first time since her broken engagement, she realizes that opening her heart again no longer feels frightening. Looking at Adrian, she quietly smiles, understanding that trust is not rebuilt through grand gestures, but through countless small moments of honesty. Back in the city, Dewey's former fiancé continues dedicating himself to charitable work. His foundation begins helping hundreds of young students receive scholarships and employment opportunities. Although he still carries regret, he no longer tries to change the past. Instead, he focuses on becoming a better person than the one who once sacrificed love for ambition. During a charity event, he unexpectedly sees Dewey speaking with a group of students. She notices him as well. This time, however, there is no awkwardness between them. They exchange warm smiles and briefly congratulate each other on their work helping others. Neither of them mentions the painful past because both understand that some chapters are meant to remain closed forever. As they part ways, he silently thanks fate for allowing Dewey to find the happiness she always deserved, even though he was no longer part of that future. Several weeks later, the company celebrates the anniversary of its international expansion with a grand ceremony attended by employees, investors, and business leaders from around the world. During the celebration, Madame Ratna steps onto the stage and delivers an emotional speech about perseverance, integrity, and hope. At the end of her speech, she invites Dewey to join her. Standing before hundreds of guests, Madame Ratna announces that she has officially named Dewey as her successor, entrusting her with the future leadership of the company whenever she decides to retire. The audience erupts into thunderous applause as Dewey stands frozen in disbelief. Tears fill her eyes once again because she understands the enormous responsibility being placed in her hands. Looking around the room, she sees not strangers but people who believed in her, supported her, and watched her rise from complete despair to extraordinary success. Taking a deep breath, she accepts the responsibility with humility, promising that she will protect the company's values just as Madame Ratna always had. As the applause continues, Dewey silently reflects on the incredible journey that transformed a broken-hearted woman into a respected leader, realizing that every painful step along the way had prepared her for this unforgettable moment. A full year passes after the day Dewey was officially announced as Madame Ratna's successor, and her life has transformed in ways she could never have imagined during the darkest days of her past. The company continues expanding across several countries, becoming one of the most respected business organizations in the region. Under Dewey's leadership, profits continue to grow, but more importantly, the company earns a reputation for honesty, fairness, and compassion. Employees proudly tell others that they work for a company where talent is valued more than family connections, and where every individual is treated with dignity regardless of their background. Many young graduates dream of joining the organization, not only because of its success, but because of the culture Dewey has created. She introduces scholarship programs for underprivileged students, financial assistance for employees facing personal hardships, and leadership workshops designed to encourage integrity over ambition. Whenever reporters ask her the secret behind the company's remarkable growth, Dewey always gives the same answer. She says that businesses become successful when they stop thinking only about money and start caring about people. Her words inspire countless entrepreneurs, and her story becomes a symbol of hope for anyone who has ever been betrayed, underestimated, or told they would never succeed. Meanwhile, Madame Ratna gradually steps back from her daily responsibilities, proudly watching the company flourish under Dewey's guidance. Although she officially retires from active management, she still visits the headquarters occasionally, where employees warmly welcome her like a beloved family member. Every time she sees Dewey confidently leading meetings or mentoring young executives, she quietly smiles, knowing that her decision to trust one kind-hearted stranger has become the greatest legacy of her life. One afternoon, after finishing an important international conference, Dewey receives a message from Adrian asking if she would join him for dinner at the quiet riverside restaurant where they had celebrated the company's first overseas partnership months earlier. As they sit together watching the sunset reflect across the calm water, Adrian thanks Dewey for allowing him to become part of her journey. He tells her that meeting her completely changed the way he viewed success. Before knowing her, he believed achievements were measured by financial results and business awards. But after watching her overcome betrayal without losing her kindness, he realized that true success is measured by the number of lives a person positively changes. Dewey smiles gently, admitting that she once believed her life had ended the day she lost the man she loved. Looking back now, she understands that what felt like the greatest tragedy was actually the beginning of a much greater future. Adrian reaches into his jacket pocket and quietly places a small velvet box on the table. Inside rests a simple yet elegant ring. There are no expensive speeches, no dramatic displays, and no grand audience. Looking directly into Dewey's eyes, Adrian simply says that he does not promise a life without problems because no one can control the future. Instead, he promises honesty during difficult times, loyalty during moments of success, and respect every single day they spend together. Tears slowly fill Dewey's eyes as she remembers another promise made many years earlier, a promise that was broken when greed became more important than love. But this moment feels completely different. There is no pressure, no fear, and no uncertainty. There is only peace. With a heartfelt smile, she quietly says yes. The months that follow are filled with joyful preparations, but unlike the luxurious wedding her former fiancé once planned with another woman, Dewey chooses a simple ceremony surrounded only by family, close friends, loyal employees, and the people who stood beside her during her most difficult moments. Madame Ratna proudly walks beside Dewey as if she were her own daughter, while many employees become emotional watching the woman who once entered the company searching for a second chance now begin a beautiful new chapter of her life. Even Dewey's former fiancé attends the ceremony after receiving a personal invitation from her. At first he hesitates, unsure whether his presence would be appropriate, but Dewey insists that the past no longer has power over either of them. During the reception, he quietly congratulates the newly married couple and sincerely wishes them a lifetime of happiness. Looking at Dewey's peaceful smile, he finally understands that true love is not about possession. Sometimes loving someone means accepting that they deserve happiness, even if that happiness no longer includes you. As the evening comes to an end, he walks away without sadness, carrying only gratitude for the lessons life has taught him. Years later, Dewey and Adrian continue leading the company together while expanding their charitable foundation across several countries. Thousands of students receive scholarships, struggling families receive financial support, and small businesses are given opportunities to grow through programs created under Dewey's leadership. Whenever people ask her how she remained strong after experiencing such heartbreaking betrayal, she simply smiles and says that life will always test every person's heart. Some people become bitter because of their pain, while others become stronger because of it. The choice, she explains, always belongs to us. Standing on the balcony of the company's headquarters one peaceful evening, Dewey watches the city lights sparkle beneath the night sky. She remembers the frightened young woman who once stood outside a luxury hotel, crying after her world fell apart. If she could speak to that version of herself now, she would tell her not to lose hope, because every tear would eventually lead her toward a better future. She would remind her that broken promises do not define a person's destiny, and that kindness is never wasted, even when the world seems unfair. Sometimes the people who hurt us unknowingly push us toward the life we were always meant to live. As the gentle evening breeze moves across the city, Dewey smiles with complete peace in her heart. The woman who once lost everything has gained something far more valuable than wealth or success. She has found a loving family, loyal friends, meaningful purpose, and a future built on trust instead of deception. Her journey proves that betrayal may break a heart for a season, but courage, patience, and kindness have the power to rebuild an even more beautiful life. And with that, Dewey's extraordinary story finally comes to an end, not as the tale of a broken woman seeking revenge, but as the inspiring story of someone who chose forgiveness over hatred, hope over despair, and love over fear, proving that after every painful ending, life still has the ability to write an even more beautiful beginning.